My guest today is writer, director, and composer Trevor Morris. Now, Trevor has contributed to 35 feature films and over 700 hours of dramatic television. He is a 5-time Emmy nominee and a 2-time winner. He has collaborated with Ridley and Tony Scott, Antoine Fuqua, and Gore Verbinski, and Jerry Bruckheimer, among others. Now, his brand new, well, I should say, his Oscar shortlisted Best Live Action Short, Butterfly on a Wheel, marks Trevor's first narrative film as writer-director. Here he fuses music, emotion, and visual storytelling into a grounded portrait of mental health, resilience, and creative freedom. Now, with the film's rich Toronto setting, soulful performances, and exploration of OCD and anxiety through the lens of a young artist's coming of age. Now, Butterfly on a Wheel is painfully beautiful, but powerfully triumphant. A film that everyone who sees it can find something to relate to and maybe lead them to their own healing journey. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome writer, director, composer Trevor Morris and his Oscar shortlisted Best Live Action Short, Butterfly on a Wheel, to the show. Welcome, Trevor.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
You're very, very welcome. Well, I was so moved by your film. What led you to explore OCD and anxiety and place it on film?
The movie really started during mid-COVID. I mean, COVID hit everybody hard, but it really hit me hard. It was just a birthday and homeschooling my kids, a bunch of stuff. I was really on my knees for like a year. It was like a rock bottom sort of situation. And so as I was pulling myself out of it, one of the first thoughts I had was, well, what's your earliest, warmest, positive memory? And that's sitting in my grandmother's lap and her playing Puff the Magic Dragon on piano to me, which is where I'm sure the seed of music started with me as well. And that began the healing journey for me and began the genesis of the script. And really, it's funny because the idea of our character who does have OCD and anxiety, he's just trying to get through the day, in an honest moment. But really what he's after is the ability to get out of his own way and explore his own true voice, his authentic voice. He just wants to be seen, in quotations, like we all do. That's really what we're exploring in the movie.
There's that scene in the film where Jason and then his brother Dylan are in the apartment. They're looking out the window, and Jason is more like, I'm fine of just playing music for myself, but he really had a deep desire to really play music for everyone else, but he didn't know how to express it at the moment.
Yeah, that's one of his things he needs to get past himself in order to explore. And I think we all have something that we get at. Human beings are really good at this. We put stuff in our own way all the time. I don't know why we do it, but we do it.
Yeah, we do. Now, I felt the deep struggle of the main character, Jason. And many people don't understand the invisible struggle OCD creates. And your film gave us the most perfect insight I've ever seen of this struggle. And what have those with OCD said to you about your film?
Thank you for that. It was really important that we portrayed OCD authentically, not sensationalized like it is in some movies and TV shows. We had a great consultant named Josh out of Toronto who was kind of our guiding light to show what it's really like. I mean, there are many kinds of OCD, 6 or 7 kinds. The one that I focus on, the one that I have, is symmetry and counting. But it was important to show that this guy was just struggling quietly, invisibly by himself, just to get from A to B, just to get to school. Was an achievement for this guy. And I think that we all have. I mean, in an honest moment, we can all relate to like organizing things in the fridge, can't we? I mean, we all do that a little bit. No one's looking. But it was really important to get that right. And thank you for saying that. And I said to Josh, you're my target audience. If you watch the movie and go, yeah, that's what that's really like, then we won. And he rubber stamped us at the end.
You know, when I was watching the film, and Kieran Walters just brings forth this incredible
Amazing.
performance. And what I loved about the way that you were able to help him portray someone with OCD, you allow us to see this this invisible cage that they place themselves in, or it's created, don't know why. You know, you kind of give us a this, and I love this about your film because this is very tough to do in a short film, is to give us a little bit of a backstory, and you give us the backstory of the character Jason, which I loved, and it was done so perfectly. But to see this struggle, you bring the audience right into his struggle, and in a way, we're silently cheering him on. And to see all the little ticks and the things that he does,
Mm.
seriously, Trevor, I have never seen anyone do a film that truly portrays what OCD actually is.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, we meet the character. He doesn't speak hardly at all for the first few minutes of the movie, but you kind of know everything you need to know about the guy within the first 3 minutes. And so then when he meets the girl, not to spoiler alert that anyone hasn't seen it, but he meets the girl, we're rooting for him. We're like, man, it's you're doing it. You're getting past yourself. And then of course he ultimately gets in his own way. But yeah, it was again in a short film. You have to kind of get down to business pretty quickly. Mine, as you mentioned before we got on, mine's longer than most because I really wanted a beginning, a definite middle, and then a rise to the end. But thank you for that. It was really done with care and purpose to make sure that again, there for some reason OCDs in a lot of comedies is like the show Monk, for example, is it's quite funny the way it's portrayed and. I wanted to make sure that we didn't do that. We wanted to make sure it's also a great visual as a filmmaker, a representation of anxiety because you can see it.
Well, you also show, and you do this with incredible subtleness between Jason and Dylan. So here's two brothers. There's a respect. There's a love there, and even the joking is is accepted and respected, especially when Dylan kind of looks over at Jason and goes, "Yeah, Rain Man." And I
Yeah,
thought, I've said only a trusted brother could have pulled that off without Jason punching him. So,
yeah.
but I love the way that you portrayed that because that allowed Jason to at least he had someone where he could be open and free a bit. And there's an understanding that he is struggling with something.
Yeah, the idea of the brother was, and it's in his speech, is that he's the older brother, a bit better looking, probably got all the girls, life came a bit easier for him. And only in that rock bottom moment when he says, nothing is wrong with you, man. And then 2 minutes later, Jason says, I wish I was just a dumb jock. And he's like, yeah, none taken, Rain Man. And it actually gets a light chuckle, just a light chuckle from the audience in the room, which it should be. It's a little levity in this otherwise rock bottom moment for our character. So the only person in the world who could do it is his brother.
Yeah, and I noticed that, and I just love that little piece within the film. But also, you are a composer and a musician. Is there a tug of war of sorts in creative people that the public doesn't see?
That is a really interesting question. It's subjective, of course. And all my musician composer friends have asked to see the movie, and they all they'll respond the same, which is like, yeah, that's me in some weird parallel way. So I think so. I think so. I think there is kind of that yin and yang in everybody, but certainly in musicians, I wouldn't say the tortured artist thing. It's not so much that. It is just, there is that struggle between identity, between being authentic, being trying to create a piece of music that is truly you, but you want to please a client or please the world and make it something that, that kind of conversation we all have in our heads. So I think so. I think so.
Yeah, it reminded me of how comedians who struggle with depression while they work to make other people laugh.
Very much. That's a
You
great
know,
analogy.
and then with Jason, he made the comment in the very beginning where he's like, "I want to make the best." And I hope I say this right. I want to create the best. Was it 2 bar jazz open ever?
Mhm.
But then there was that short conversation again in the beginning to where he's like, "I'm fine playing by myself." But when he says that line, he really wants the world to know and to hear it. He's just trying to figure out how to cross that line to get there.
Exactly, exactly. And the metaphor for this internal struggle is when he plays a silent concert for the hall at WC Arabesque, and he stands up and takes a bow. This is the moment he wishes he could do, and then immediately flashes back to his youth with his grandmother. That warm, fuzzy feeling of being in that, especially the way it was shot, very, almost like 70s ish and creamy and very warm. And he looks up at the audience, of which there's no one there. This is the closest he's ever going to get in his mind to touching his dream, is to at least play for a silent audience and take a bow. So there's something kind of very moving and deep about that moment, and that it pays off in the end, of course, when he is back on that same stage in a different arena.
Yeah, yeah, and I love the way that you piece this story together because you encompass the music, the emotion, and the visual storytelling in Butterfly on a Wheel. The moment the film started, the visuals were captivating with these warm tones, inviting the audience into a surreal experience. Then you bring the reality to the moment when the visuals go into cool tones.
Mm.
Why was this particular color element important?
Very astute observation, by the way. Yes, we start in the surreal flashback in quotations, and it's all very, again, I'm '70s kid, so it has more of those amber tones, warm tones, like sunlight kind of colors. And then when we meet Jason, first of all, he's sleeping sideways on camera, and it's almost monochrome attic. It's blue and white, to be honest, almost instead of black and white. And the idea was to create this juxtaposition between the warmth of his memories, the warmth of his youth, and the sort of cold reality of his daily life. And then we go into the bathroom, it's the same thing, this long row of medicine and just, OCD stacked up bars of soap. And it's just like, I won't swear in this podcast, but, he says, you just like, oh man, one more of these days. So it was meant to create that contrast in color and texture. And we revisited, of course, throughout the movie.
Well, yeah, I noticed the elements of blue in the film, especially the decor of the apartment, because blue is usually a color of depression. And was this particular color palette in the apartment relative to the story or just a coincidence?
It was relative to the story. His T-shirts, which he has very much as the Mark Zuckerberg row of T-shirts. The artwork on the wall, which you really see in focus in the date when Sorrell walks in, it's all blue. It was a local artist, and I just said, "Give me all your best blue paintings." The couch is blue, and yeah. So it's meant to be, even though it's a safe space for him. There's no red or orange in that environment. And of course, we end the movie in a very technicolor kind of way, where his life is full of color, full of light, full of life, and full of sound and music too. So to get to the end and it to be satisfying, I wanted to start off someplace where we had somewhere to go.
Yeah, what I know when you do the panning shot of the camera of his closet and all the t-shirts are the same color. I noticed that they were on the darker shade of blue. And then towards the end of the film, there's the scene where he's walking and he's wearing a light blue shirt and much lighter tan color pants or slacks. And I thought, what I loved about that was he was in, there was this freedom, this light that started to encompass him in a way, and it kind of gave the audience a subtle hint that he's on his way to better things.
Again, incredibly astute observation. Yeah, we leave him at the dining table with his brother, saying, "I gotta go away," and he's like, "Where and for how long?" He's like, "I don't know." Next thing you know, we're in the desert. It's Joshua Tree Desert where we shot it, and he's by the fire. And his jacket is sort of almost an orangey kind of color, and his pants are different color, and it's this transformative thing. We're trying to do this in a 2-minute montage, mind you, in a otherwise long short. It's still a short movie. And then the whole color palette changes, and we see the stars, and we see the desert, and and the textures of the rocks. So we're trying to really bring the audience through, and the music, to this transformative thing that we don't know how long it took him to get to the other side of. And I went through this myself. I was on a dusty bus in Costa Rica. That's where I went to heal. So it is autobiographical in that sense. But yes, there was a change of color palette, and then he's wearing light blue back at home. And then, of course, he ends up where he ends up in the final scene.
Yeah, this is ladies and gentlemen, for all of you up and coming filmmakers out there, or those who want to improve your own craft, You have to see Butterfly on a Wheel because there's a lot of things here that will teach you to be better. And one
Mhm.
thing I love, Trevor, is when filmmakers understand the power of color and that just the subtleness of using color to add to the depth of the story. You just did it perfectly.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about it, color and texture, and certainly sound. I mean, for example, I'm sure you noticed. I don't know where you listen to it. Hopefully, on good headphones. But when he finally makes it out the front door, the sound of the street is so alarmingly loud in the mix. Most people cover their ears. That was the intention, actually, because it's how he hears the world. It's subjective, right? And that's actually me. My hearing is my strongest sense. So the attention to detail with sound and texture and certainly color and the type of lensing we used to capture the concert hall was all very deliberate. So I appreciate the comment on the craft. It means a lot.
Well, one of the things that I really understood was when Jason was going to school. It's the first shot when he walks to his own front door before he
Mm.
leaves, and he clicks the lock. I think it was 7 times before he opens the door to leave, and and it reminded me many years ago. I had talked to this gentleman who had severe OCD, and he would touch the doorknob 5 times before he left the house.
Mhm.
And then I asked him one day, I said, "Do you realize that when you do that, that the world doesn't change or your world doesn't change?" I said, "If you did it once, it's going to be no different than if you did it 5 times." And he goes, "Yes, I know."
Mhm.
And then you have the scene when Sorrell comes to his apartment and he stands there at the door. And I'm really sitting here with anticipation, like, okay, is he going to click at 7? Or is he going to just like do it once and open the door? It's like, and I hope the audience realizes that is a major breakthrough for someone like that.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
when he did it once, I was like,
Yeah. The
you're
idea of
almost on your way.
yeah, exactly. Like that was the beginning of hey, he's getting past his things, because he cracks his knuckle. Like it's took everything he had to turn it just that one time, and then she comes in and it gets better and better. So yeah, again, very astute. It was very deliberate and on purpose, and that is a very classic OCD trait. Some people, can't leave the house without brushing their teeth 100 times in each direction, things like that. That's just very real. So we're treating it with the utmost respect in a way that I don't have to show that on screen for people to understand, but that's exactly what it's like for people like that.
Yeah, you're not making fun of anybody. You're showing what really happens, and the audience understands the character. And there's the scene between Jason and Sorrell at the apartment over dinner. And this is it's a very powerful and for some, a very difficult scene to watch. And because when he says, "There is nothing wrong with me," Jason was crying out for help, but it was the turning point that would change his life for the better, correct?
Yeah. So what she's saying to him in the moment is because she's such an authentic person. Is you should put yourself out there, music man. She's just being nice. And who he's talking to when he says there's nothing wrong with me is not her.
Right.
He's talking to all the voices in his head, all the voices from the past, everyone ever, or his own voice, someone other than her. And it is just a moment where it triggers him all the way down to, and he hits rock bottom. And it is the point from which he climbs out of hell into light, to quote, the poem. But, in the movie, we say, real change only happens when the pain of staying the same gets bad enough. And that was his moment. I don't want to be this guy anymore. And that's when he says, I got to go away. I gotta figure this out. So it was, in a strange way, one of his greatest gifts, that moment.
Yeah, when I saw the scene and I replayed it, and you're right, he wasn't talking to her. And I thought that is the moment where he realizes that the invisible cage he's in has no lock on the door. And
Hmm.
now he has to realize and want to. And I think that's what it was. To me, it was he finally got the want to say, I've had enough of this,
Exactly.
and I'm going to do whatever I can do to free myself from this. And a lot of people never get to that point. But like you said, sometimes you got to get down to the very depths of that type of situation, or to the point to where you get to the point to where the depth of the pain, and there's no more depth to that pain. There's only a way up. And
Yeah,
that's
to
what that
go
moment was.
100%. And to go further, some people never get there. Some people don't want to get there. They don't want to face that hard truth, that hard moment, because on the other side of that is your true authentic self. And I always say the theme of the movie, Beyond OCD and Anxiety, is the universal theme of we all want to be seen for who we really are. I think we all want that. But sometimes the reason we're not seen, do we see ourselves for who we really are? So getting past that moment is something that everybody does, as you said, not everybody wants to do.
That's true. It almost reminds me of those who have attempted or succeeded in climbing Mount Everest. The journey's
Mm.
long, but then there's that one part where you have to cross the death zone to get to the peak. And do you want to, or do
Mhm.
you want to turn around and go back? And it kind of reminded me of that. But wow, what a powerful moment in this film, because even his brother was very happy for him, because he's like, dude, you invited a girl over. He's
Yeah.
like, dude, that's a major step. So he was so happy, like, wow, you're gonna socialize with somebody else besides me.
Yeah, it's interesting that moment, for Jason when he hits rock bottom and he's crying, he cries in silence. I had it specifically, especially for a sound and music type of movie. He cries, it's just music carrying that scene. And in the healing montage, when he screams at the fire, because he also screams in silence. So it was kind of a stylistic choice to have him be isolated and alone. We can't even share that moment with him because it's just him all by himself, in the big world. Um, but and then of course, the brother gets his, who's kind of, if there is such a thing as comic relief in this movie, he's the jovial guy, and then he finally gets his moment in the sun where he gets to say to his little brother, "Listen, man, I realize life has come easier for me than it did for you, and there's nothing wrong with you." And of course, what I say in the movie is, what makes you different is your superpower. We're taught as children that what you're different. What you should go over here, or you don't learn like everybody else. Go to that class, or why can't you sit still? Why can't you be like everybody else? These differences, in quotations, get pressed into our soul as a child, and once it hardens, it seems like a deficiency when you get older. You know what I mean? It seems like a defect. When in fact, I truly believe those are our superpowers. If you're dyslexic, which I'm not, if you are, chances are you're probably good at other things. It sharpens you in other areas. So this is the realization that I wish everyone would take from this movie is we're all flawed in our own way. Thank God. And to embrace what makes us different, because that is the source of our own unique voice in the world. And that's really what I'm getting at with this movie.
Well, even Tom Cruise is dyslexic, and look what he's accomplished. So,
There you go.
everybody has an invisible superpower, and if they can just find it and tap into it, then they can do good things and great things. And I think this film brings hope to a lot of people. But how did you come to cast such incredible young actors, especially Kieran Walters? Because boy, and did he really play the piano?
He did not, and I have to tell you, I'll get to casting in a moment. As a professional composer for so long, watching movies where the actor is playing an instrument very badly and badly out of sync makes me crazy. So we went to great lengths to get that right on this. But Curran did take piano lessons to learn how to act like a musician and move like a musician, and I taught him various things that where the fingers go and stuff like that. Back to casting, it's funny because the universe was really conspiring to help me make this movie. It was at the right time of my life to make it. And we had a casting agent, wonderful casting agent, big shot casting agent, Rick Montgomery. And we're getting casting tapes, and everybody played their auditions. They played Jason funny. They played him like Monk, the OCD thing. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And so Curran actually came as a recommendation from a friend who read the script and sent it to Curran and said, you got to read this. And Curran was a gift from just an associate of mine, a girl named Sade. And then same thing with Sorel, who played by Brielle. We couldn't find her. We're 2 weeks for shooting. I hadn't found her yet. I was like getting really stressed. And then my first AD, who was hired, said, "I just worked on a show with this girl. Can I send her the script?" Yeah, sure, please, can't hurt. And I met her on a Zoom. She was up in cottage country in Canada, and I cast her in about 10 minutes. I was like, "You're it," you know. So the if you vibrate, this is what manifestation is, right? If you vibrate on a high enough level, the universe vibrates with you. And on this one, it really did. It conspired to help me big time.
Well, the actors were fantastic, and for you, because you are a composer, but this film is your first step behind the camera to write and direct. What was that
Mhm.
experience like? And kind of, is it a shock to you? And I'm sure it is to see your first film Oscar shortlisted.
So the the post production part of making a movie, I'm very familiar with. It's very home turf. But getting onto the set the first couple of days, abject terror. I'm not gonna lie. It's just you yell cut, and 50 people look at you like you better have the answer to whatever questions in their head. It's quite terrifying. And I'm actually an introvert by nature, so I had to get past that. But by day three, I go, okay, I got it. You know what I mean? But the first couple of days was just the machinery of making a movie is intense, and it's a lot if you've ever been on set. And I had been on set before, but not in the big chair. So that was a huge transition for me. And my producer said, when you're done this movie, one of two things is going to happen. One, I never want to do that again because it's so hard. Or two, you'll get the bug, and I got the bug, and I am fully in love with writing and directing. So that's great. And but getting past the yeah, drinking from the fire hose was being on set for the first 2 days.
Well, I loved the concert hall that you found because even the color palette there played well into the film.
Very much. Yeah. Remember, to him, it's the Sistine Chapel, right? He can barely get in the door at first, and he kind of looks around and he's tiptoeing through the space, and it's golden and it's glowing. And that's how I see it. And it's a beautiful hall in Toronto that, again, doesn't get shot. Of course, I'm from there. So the whole movie is a love letter to Toronto, as you can tell. And that concert hall I really wanted to feature because it's never really been featured on film before. It's been shot as a double for other things like Berlin or something like that. But it's a gorgeous concert hall with these wooden ribbons, and it's just beautiful on screen.
Yeah, it was so funny because when I was watching the film, I was looking at the decor of the hall because I'm always interested in the architecture, the designs of concert halls because of how sound works. So I'm
Mhm.
looking at all of, like you said, you see the ribbons of wood, and I'm like, how does someone design a concert hall knowing that you need the sound to be accepted by the audience no matter where they sit? And so it
Yeah,
always intrigues me. So when I see these different designs, I'm like, how do they make designs different but still keep the sound where it's supposed to be? It's kind of like, was it Albert Royal Hall and things of that sort? These orchestras play, and it just sounds so beautiful. It always intrigues me when I see the
yeah.
designs.
We just lost Frank Gehry, a Torontonian, by the way, one of our great architects. His Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles is proof positive to there is more than one way to do that. I mean, I love architecture. I'm sitting here in Midtown. Out the window is Bryant Park, but architectural acoustics I find one of the most artful. Frozen. It's like frozen music. You know what I mean? It's like I'm with you on that one for sure.
Well, what are some of the stories that people have shared with you when they saw your film?
It's truly an amazing thing, and I mean this with all humility, to share it with an audience and have total strangers come up to you, some of them almost in tears or in tears, to say thank you for making this movie. I see myself in that character, or I see my son in that character, or I feel seen. I get that a lot, that I'm different and it's okay to be different. And it just, when I was writing the script, my producers were like, the script is good, but it's not personal enough. I go, guys, you're killing me. Like, there's a lot of me already on that screen. and they dared me to make it as personal as possible. And in the moment, I was going, no one's going to care about the things that are personal to me because they're mine. But what I found is the opposite is true. That which is most personal is most universally received. So even though they may not be a musician or they may not have OCD or anxiety, they their grandmother is very influential to them, or they feel seen just because no one ever saw them. They felt anonymous. So I get this all the time. I was just in London yesterday or 2 days ago. Same thing. I mean, what an amazing gratification as a filmmaker to, it's why we go to movies, isn't it? To be touched or moved or scared or whatever it is, to make, a 32-minute movie or 33-minute movie and have it move people like that is just, it's awesome.
Well, what was your emotion the first time you sat in a theater with an audience to see the film?
I try not to cry at my own movie, which I still do. You kind of go like this. Please don't hate it at first because it's just the natural insecurity of any artist. Um, but although you mentioned it is longer for a short, it is hopefully paced fairly well. And a lot of people say it didn't feel like a half an hour or something like that. So because I've watched a lot of shorts this season, and I've seen, to be honest, 18-minute shorts that feel like an hour long.
I
And
feel you. I feel you.
yeah, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But no, now that I've gotten over my insecurity of just being in the room with everybody, now it's a true joy, just to watch people experience, and they jump at the moment when Curran has this big brave, on there's nothing wrong with him. The whole audience jumps. They didn't see that coming. Those moments are kind of always landing the same. The little chuckle and at the brothers at the end. So it's just a true joy to watch with an audience.
Well, was it tough to get a 34-minute short film into a film festival?
Yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot not knowingly that a lot of film festivals, put it this way, we didn't get into Sundance and Tribeca and some of the big ones. They're like, you're too long. They just told us, we only take shorts under 24 minutes or under, I mean, Cannes is under 10, I think, or something like that. So
No, can is under 15.
under 15, there you go. You would, yeah. But there were a lot of them where like, do you have a shorter version? And the only way to do that was to cut the brother out. And that's not the movie I wanted to make. So, I knew that Oscar contention was 39 minutes or less. That was always what the maximum a short could be. I don't want to be that long, but I really wanted to have a beginning, middle, and an end. It just took the time that it took, but it did mean missing out on some film festivals, unfortunately.
Right. There was a film, can't remember the title. I've seen so many. It was 36 minutes long, which really shocked me. And because when I see them go past 20, I'm thinking, okay, how many film festivals did you get in? and But sometimes it just takes that one festival, a top one, that takes the chance, and then the other festivals hear about it. And then it kind of makes the submission process a little bit easier. But Trevor, this film is absolutely stunning in every way. But what do you hope audiences will take away from seeing Butterfly on a Wheel?
The hope is that, again, we touched on it earlier, is that we can all look at what we think is wrong with us, or what we think is our setbacks or our dysfunctions, or these things. They're our superpowers. If we could just embrace who we really are and really find our authentic voice will come through. I think it's one of the greatest individual journeys that you'll ever go on as a person, is to face these things and embrace them as part of who you are, and with gratitude too. And it's not an easy ask. I get that. But I think that if one person watches this movie and goes, I feel seen, and that thing that I think is wrong with me, I'm just going to own it and wear it and absorb it, then it was worth making.
Yeah, there's a light on the other side. And I hope that this film really brings that message to a lot of people that may be struggling, and then, take that step and go through that short journey of pain to see where the joy is actually on the other side. And your film shows that. And I believe it's going to encourage a lot of people to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, Trevor Morris's Oscar shortlisted Best Live Action Short, Butterfly on a Wheel, is set against Toronto's vibrant urban landscape. It centers on Jason Davis, played by the incredible Curran Walters, a gifted jazz student at the prestigious Royal Conservatory of Music who is battling the invisible struggles of OCD and anxiety. Now, as he works to build the confidence to perform live at the renowned Corner Hall, his immense talent is undercut by crippling fears until a chance encounter with Sorel, played by actress Beryl Robillard, sparks a transformative journey. Now, with the unwavering support of his brother Dylan, played by Michael Provost, Jason embarks on a difficult but inspiring path to reclaim his most authentic self. This is one of the very few films that brought tears to my eyes this year. Now, I'm a sucker for the underdog, and to watch their struggles and eventual triumph is what we need more in today's cinema. We are living in a world today where so many people are struggling, and many are caught in the never-ending loop of anxiety and mental health issues that leaves them feeling trapped. The Butterfly on a Wheel gives us all hope and the ability to look inside ourselves to see our own vulnerabilities and hopefully find a way out so we can truly live. Now, Butterfly on a Wheel brings powerful, moving emotion, beautifully stunning cinematography that invites us into the life of Jason and his struggle. Add the wonderful and beautiful music score, and you find a film that the Academy has fallen in love with, and so have I. Now, not many films bring tears to my eyes, and when they do, I will never forget them. And Butterfly on a Wheel makes you grab a tissue, and that's a good thing. And as the film says, what makes you different is your superpower, and we're all caught in the dances of shadows and light, like a butterfly on a wheel. Trevor, thank you so much. And I say thank you for sharing this amazing short film with me today, and much continued success in your Oscar journey.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, and I really appreciate the kind words. Thank you.
You're very, very welcome. And ladies and gentlemen, whenever you get a chance to see Butterfly on a Wheel, and I hope it is soon, take the time to take and absorb all 34 minutes of this absolutely beautiful and stunning film that gives a message to hope to millions. So, ladies and gentlemen, you can watch or listen to all of the Bondon Cinema interviews at bondoncinema.com. Check out our Prime show, our YouTube channel, Spotify, iTunes, and more. And remember, you're either going to see me at the movies or from the red carpet.